least let's not contaminate it further. And they did some cleanup. And now it is a spot of focus for the rest of the world on how amazing the Earth heals herself. It cleaned up beyond all expectations and beyond all hope, and much of the wildlife came back, and it's amazing. And it was really thought to be a lost cause by everybody, the conservative people all the way, all the way across the board. A lot of it just takes that focus and that attention and that care. I just had a show with a bike guy who does Free Cycles Missoula, and he's all into, keeping the sprawl and the pollution and the crazy traveling from increasing. But that's one guy. If we were all doing like 1/10 of what that guy's doing on helping the planet and helping our communities, we would see a huge healing on the planet almost overnight. It just takes that kind of care and attention. And before I go on, I wanted to ask people, I do have the charts of, like I promised, the US, China, Russia, also have Pakistan and India, and I've got the Pope, and I've got Bill Clinton, and I just went all over the place. Is anybody specifically interested in any one of those places? I could start there. Which one? Which one, Mallory? You're nodding your head yes.
Let's start here.
Let's start with Missoula?
That's our first step.
Okay.
We can go forward.
Okay. So, Missoula. Let me see where we're going to go here. Well, Missoula's having a very interesting time. Missoula is in the middle of a Saturn return. And I'm just going to assume that there's at least one person in here that knows next to nothing about astrology, so I'll talk about that. Okay. Saturn moves at about 28 and a half times, or let me start that over. Missoula has a birth chart, and that chart is based on the time that the charter was signed, creating Missoula. Obviously, the earth, the land, has been here for millions of years, and I wouldn't even know how to start a birth chart for that. But Missoula itself and the community and how we see and define it happened at that date. And for Missoula, that's March 8th, 1883. And that gives it a birth chart. And Mallory is a wonderful dowser, and she doused for me that it was at 12:16 p.m., so I even have a rising sign. And if you don't know, Missoula is a triple water sign. It's a Pisces sun, a Pisces moon, and a Cancer rising. So if any of you feel, I feel really at home here and so confused, I can't believe it. That's why. That's why. And why are you working through all this past life stuff with all these people that you never met before? Well, Pisces rules past lives too. And it's also a place where people cocoon themselves, and the snow is sort of an excuse for that cocooning thing that goes on in the winter. It's a really good place to cocoon anyway. Even if this were the tropics, people would still need some time alone in their houses for a good deal of the time. The Cancer does that, nesting and nurturing. It's also got a family feel to it. Pardon me? And you love it. And I've mentioned before that, there are a lot of people here on way below the poverty level. And there aren't too many of us that are starving, because there is a network and friends will give you a dinner. And that again is the Cancer, the sense of family and the feeding of each other. Cancer also is food and feeding and nurturing and all of that. And now Saturn is in Taurus in the Missoula chart. In fact, there are 3 planets in Taurus in Missoula. So this is a good place to be as far as figuring out what to do with this Taurus energy. This is probably, amongst the charts I've looked at, it's definitely the one I would choose to be in. These others are having a harder time of it. But we have Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto. And then we also have that crazy comet planet Chiron in there. So you could say there's a 4th one in there. I say it's crazy because it has a very erratic orb, also known as the wounded healer. So it takes Saturn 28 and a half years approximately to get back to where it was at the time of your birth. This is Missoula's 4th Saturn return. So for those people that were in Missoula the last time, you'd be good people to talk to about what to do with the Saturn return this time. But I have a feeling most of us, I bet more than half the room was not here 28 and a half years ago. You were. Anyone else here 28 and a half years ago? Oh, good. 26? No, sorry, Roger. You were here 28 and a half years ago? So whatever you were dealing with then, and I have a feeling it might have been pollution from the factories around. Yeah. And I think that was also the time that Missoula was ranked about 4th or 3rd in the country for pollution, air pollution, right up there with LA. This is an indicator of what we're dealing with now, because the issues don't go away, they just become more mature. So the air pollution isn't as bad this time. We learned something from the last time, but it's still worse than it needs to be. So we're still going to be focusing on this. And again, Uranus is in Aquarius, so there are a lot of really great technological thinkers in town and nation worldwide that are going to come forward with technology to work with some of this stuff. As the rest of the community and the rest of the population of the planet, we need to make sure that these technologies have ethics behind them. This is also part of the Taurian thing and connecting with the earth. So if this is a really off-the-wall thing that I was thinking of today. If we're doing this genetic manipulation on our food so that we can someday poison aliens so they won't stay here, that's not an ethical way or an ethical reason for doing genetic manipulation of food. We're really getting this genetically engineered food pushed on us, and I can't figure out why. And I hear all sorts of reasons, and I know that they're marketing campaigns. I haven't heard a really good reason yet, except we've got it, we can do it. And that's fun. Yeah.
Tonight on the news, we talked about this, and two major corporations, McDonald's and some other major corporations just told us that they dropped it because we don't want to be part of it. Because of liability and stuff.
That's interesting.
So hopefully that will
Start a chain reaction, yeah.
Irradiated food.
Oh, irradiated food too.
And also in the newspaper today was the Milltown Dam and all of the 66 billion cubic feet of toxic waste that's behind it.
Milltown, Montana?
Yeah, Milltown Dam.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tear down the dam, but the power company and those guys don't want us to do that, obviously, because they don't see really what they
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe they could use one of those mushrooms that eats up toxic waste. Or the largest Superfund site in the country? Okay, so this is in the news today. If this is an indicator. Yeah, Saturn return and all the Taurus stuff, focusing on our environment, focusing on our lives, our physical lives. And there are a lot of spirits outside of body that are interested in helping us. And a lot of you probably are in contact with some of yours. They're interested in us staying on the physical and making this work. And they don't even have bodies, so there has to be a good reason, for us to work with the tools that we've got. So our 4th Saturn return, and it is going to be transited by Saturn-Jupiter on the 28th. And Saturn and Jupiter are going to be conjunct on the 28th of May, and this happens even more, well actually this happens every 20 years. And Saturn and Jupiter together, for instance, if a child were born right now, it would be the sign of a king. This is a king in the good sense. This is a king in right use of power and wisdom. Really, really high, mature wisdom. So this is what's coming at the end of the month. That's what's available. The opportunity is there for this kind of maturity and this sort of evolvement through whatever problems we might have in the month. It's also possible that we'll go too far. Jupiter can be over the top. It can be too extravagant. It could be using funds that we don't have. It could be thinking that it's the end of the world and using all the funds, you know? And the people in the government know this stuff is going on. They know about astrological cycles, and they have advisors that tell them about energies going on the planet. They know a lot more than we do in the room. And whether or not those big egos are able to get together and have any sort of conspiratorial pact, I would be up for a debate on that. I don't know if that can actually happen, because there are some big egos involved. But they do have a lot of information. And Reagan, I mean, this is going back, but Reagan did not do much towards long-term planning. I don't mean to offend any Republicans. Clinton hasn't done much either. His view, I remember one of his quotes was, they were going to do a clear cut of some redwoods in California. If you've seen one redwood, you've seen them all. Basically meaning, you know, if we just leave a little stand over there so we can use that as a museum, that'll be enough. That's an over-the-top kind of thinking. That's Jupiter way out of control thinking, you know, what's the Prince song? Party like it's 1999. Party like it's the end of the world. Okay, that does not need to be the case at all. So we also, as a population, since we have these leaders in place, need to be vocal. And Gemini is going to give us that opportunity. And as I said, Mars just moved into Gemini, and the Moon's just about to move into Gemini. And we're going to get more and more of the planets moving into Gemini, which gives us more opportunity to say what we just learned from Taurus and share it and make it heard. And the media is all ready to do this, because the media is made up of people too, and some of these things just can't be ignored. And it comes up and it comes out, and it's pretty much our business to make sure that it stays out in the open, you know, because the cycles happen and things could get shoveled under the carpet again. So the Saturn return is key. Again, we have a lot to teach the rest of the world. This can be a community of example for the rest of the world on how to deal with our research. A prime community to do that, because it's a small enough community to do that. We have about 60,000 people in town, probably 80,000 close to town. This could be a model community for things like alternative cars. I would love to see somebody get a hold of GM and say, hey, bring some prototype solar cars and we'll monitor the air pollution, we'll monitor the lung cancer, we'll monitor all that stuff to show the rest of the world what can happen if we have faith and hope and use the tools and techniques that we have. I mean, we've had a lot of this technology for decades, if not longer. Yep, I have a question here.
I just heard on NPR today, driving, that NASA is finally decided to go towards Native American elders to have some kinds of energy, and how they come to use the energy that we have and be more towards them. They're kind of desperate for doing that. Finally.
And you know, they might be waiting till the 28th when, you know, a really high level of wisdom can come through and let them know which way to go. And having NASA sit for a couple weeks isn't a bad idea anyway. Just on a personal thing, for the next week, it's probably not the best time to start a business. It's still a good time to talk about it, but it's not the best time to start, you know, like sign contracts for business right now. Just as an aside there. Just wait a couple weeks, and then it'll be okay. Our Saturn return. Now, I didn't think I was going to go into this, but since we've already brought up some of the yucky stuff, I did want to talk about the symbolism on the 28th for the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. It's at 22 degrees, 22 plus degrees in Taurus. And I looked up the symbolism for it, and it was some really weird symbolism. This is a Taurus, and the symbolism was very much a combination of Taurus and Scorpio. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the tarot deck, but the Hierophant rules Taurus in the deck. The Empress, one of my favorites, she rules Venus. Venus rules Taurus. We'll get back to her in a minute. And then Scorpio is a lot of occult information and power. So the symbolism for this degree had a king sitting with a very dark figure coming in from behind, and then a person coming up to the king as if he wanted to tell him some information or ask him some information. And all of a sudden that guy is just blasted on his back, flat on his back. And I read about the interpretation of it and everything, and it has to do with leaders being tempted. Leaders being tempted by, you could call them dark forces or forces with ill intent or whatever you're comfortable with. This symbol doesn't necessarily mean that the leaders are listening. Or following, I should say. It does seem that the leader can hear the information, but whether or not the leader, the king, is following the advice is another matter. But it was some pretty interesting information, and it really made it clear to me that, especially in this country where, we are, the people are the government, and there still are remnants of that we can use. We really need to be in contact with the government on all different levels. You can email, you can go to the library and email if you want to do it anonymously. But if you want to get in touch with any sort of leaders, whether it's the mayor here or Clinton or the governor, let them know that you're focusing on this. It really does make a difference, and they do those statistical marketing things. One comment, one letter is worth, 2,000 people or something like that, depending on the municipality. So it does make a difference. And it makes the king aware that the spotlight's on him. That dark figure can't get complete attention if he knows the spotlight's on him. It just is much less likely. So, are there any questions so far? Okay. No, let me look back at the chart.
Would you suggest it at the 28th?
The 28th actually is a good time because that, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunct in Taurus is a very wise, ethical way. And I'm assuming, everyone's of pretty good intent. But that is what's available. You had a question?
Yes, you mentioned that and I wasn't sure what that color was for. I guess it would be a sign of the king.
Right. Actually, even now, if a child were born, because on a natal chart, the orb for conjunction is what we call it. The orb. A conjunction means two planets are in the same place, from our visual thing. They're in the same degree. And the orb means they can be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 degrees apart. They're about 3 degrees apart right now. So that would be considered a conjunction. So that means that it would already be that aspect's already there for a natal chart. Now, when you're doing transits, the orb is much narrower. Some people do 1, I do 2. And once it's out of the 2-degree orb, there's no aspect anymore. And I didn't really completely answer your question about why not to start a business right now. I'm looking through my chart. Just take the paper clip off. May 3rd. See, I had that information, but why I got it is about a week old. Basically, it has to do with that moon, and that moon is good instinctually, it's good for knowing who to set up with the business. But as far as contractually, there might be a lot of emotional overlays that might come into play later that aren't clear in a contract. It does go by quickly, and it'll be out of Taurus in about, actually it'll be out of Taurus tomorrow. But there was one other thing. Actually, I think I'm going to answer that question after the break so I can look more. No, that's okay. Questions are good. Questions are good. And I'm sorry, yeah.
The energies that are present in the sky now, how far forward will they propel us? I mean, I know it's a time for action or a time for change and transformation. Sometimes it happens by standing still. But what kind of energy then will be ahead of us? Will this last 6 months enough? Will we see changes and transformation?
Well, it's setting off. What's the word I'm looking for? Actually, I have something here. Now, I can't stand by this 100%. I just read it yesterday. But it's called the Earth Mission Codes. And if anyone wants to read this during the break, they're more than welcome. And they're talking about different symbolism that are setting off, that are keying things off in us. I don't know if you've heard that about crop circles. Some people think the crop circles are symbols that sort of trigger our DNA or trigger our purpose in life. That they're ancient symbols that work on propelling us forward, like you were saying. And this has all sorts. There are 3 main groupings: Pegasus, harps, lion people, dragon people, pyramid. Feng Shui is on one of these lists. The 13th sign of the zodiac, which I've always been interested in. There's all sorts of stuff. There's one, Jesus, the cross, angels, Mother Mary. Anyway, and then there's a lot about the Arthurian legends. Queen Nefertiti, Pharaoh, I can't even say that one. Okay. You know the answer? Okay.
My answer to the question is, what we can do is focus on light, and that will propel us exponentially because of the energies that are here and will continue to be here and be building. A light focus will bring into fruition the kind of world that we want to create, the kind of lives that we want to lead now.
It is a time of manifestation. And Nan's right about a lot of that. Which is what I was going to go back to about Taurus energy, because I really didn't explain Taurus energy very well. Taurus is physicality, materialism, earth, manifestation, solidity. It's a fixed sign, and it is traditional. With Uranus aspecting so strongly this, and Uranus being more futuristic and anarchistic and not willing to go along with tradition, my take on this as an astrologer is that all of our traditions are coming into question. Do these traditions hold? Do these traditions make sense? Do they take us to the future we want to be creating? If they don't, and I think, I'm going to take a guess, almost everybody in the room is having issues about their old habits and things that they thought were based in really good intentions and good ethics. They aren't working anymore. And a lot of the physicality stuff is changing. The vibration of the earth is changing. Our vibration is changing. If anyone wants to talk to Nan, I'm offering your services at the break. She knows a lot about vibrational increases. Stuff I've heard is if you're getting this shiver up your spine all of a sudden out of the blue, that's a vibrational increase. If you're getting nauseous for seemingly no reason. If you're getting headaches or, what's the bad headache? Oh, somebody knows about it. Oh my God. Well, the good thing is you're probably vibrationally light years ahead of us at this point. If you live through it. That's exactly how a lot of this feels. A lot of our habits are changing. Foods we've loved forever, all of a sudden they don't taste right. Or they might not taste right for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden they're back and they taste better than they ever did before. I don't know, maybe they took a vibrational leap in the meantime. But all of our habit stuff is changing. All of our relationship with the earth. We're getting a chance to examine all of it, all of what we do. Jupiter and Saturn have been in Taurus for a long time now. Go ahead.
How about the financial market?
Money in the financial markets. I've got something about that here. I have a chart for the New York Stock Exchange. July 7th, the natal sun of the New York Stock Exchange, and I would say that that would be pretty indicative of the numbers, you know, how it's shining, how the world sees it and all that, will be transited by Saturn exactly on July 7th. I don't know if any of you want to take a risk, stay with it. Saturn transiting the sun. Saturn is the taskmaker, the taskmaster. If all of the investments that have been made so far are based on real products and services that can be counted and felt and touched and all that, then there's probably no problem. If a lot of the stock market is based on speculation, hope, and a running trend upward and nothing else, I don't have any money in the stock market, so I'm going to leave it up to you. Because I don't really want to put the energy out that it will do something horrendous. But Saturn makes you work for what you've got. So if the stock market doesn't have actual stuff behind the numbers, Saturn's going to ask it to work and make those numbers authentic, legitimate. I guess they call that a correction. Yeah. And that transit will be going from June 19th through July 30th with the exact hit on July 7th. And the natal Mercury, which is information and numbers and communication and all that, will be hit with a conjunction on the 28th of this month for the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. It's going to be right on top of the natal Mercury of the New York Stock Exchange. Still am a believer in free will and free choice, and this indicates energies that are happening and trends that may or may not happen. The energy is always there. For instance, Jupiter is expansive. Jupiter always has the personality of Jupiter. But how we use it is really up to our own free will. So Jupiter is considered a pretty lucky planet. It's huge, it's gaseous, it has a good sense of humor, and it makes life light and fun and joyous and playful. And if it goes too far, it's a big old drunk with gas. You know, it's the same personality, it's just made different decisions in life. So it's the same thing with Saturn and the Sun and all these other things. The personalities are there. What we do with them, we still have complete free choice about. So I hope nobody came for gloom and doom predictions, because I don't have them. Yes, Jana?
Heidi, I was curious what you were going to learn about
The stones. Well, let me finish this part first. Does anybody else have any, does anyone else want me to go through U.S., Russia, and China? Yes. Okay. U.S. And I talked a little bit that Taurus is in opposition to Scorpio, and all of the signs have an opposition. And it's basically what's the term now? One coin, two faces? Two faces to the same coin. So Scorpio is an important part of Taurus, and understanding Scorpio is useful also in understanding what's going on with Taurus. Now, Taurus is physical. It's what we can see, it's what we can walk on, it's our handshakes, it's our relationship with the planet, it's all that. Most of this we can see. Scorpio is the hidden. Okay, it's the occult, it's power, and this is one of the things that will also come into play. What is power? Are we working at maintaining our own personal power, or are some of us giving it away to other people to misuse? It's not theirs. They can't do it unless we give it to them. So if there's anything out of balance on the power scale, and I would definitely be one to say that there is, this is also getting looked at. And some of the things I've heard about through different light workers and stuff is that a lot of what we've been working with is shifting. So people that have been doing without are starting to have. People that have had are starting to give. There's a consciousness raising. People that have lots of money are all of a sudden realizing, okay, I've got my boat and my house and my second house and my kids are all through college, and wait a minute, why did I go and start earning all this money in the first place? And as they sit back and they remember, or they sit back and they find the new answers, they are sort of called to spread it. They're sort of called to offer it back. It's an energy. And holding on to all that energy is it's kind of frightening when you think about it. It's an awful lot of energy for one person to handle, or for any group of people to handle. It needs to flow. It really needs to flow, and a lot of people are keying into that right now. I would say, actually, this is a really good time to apply for grants and things like that, because this is manifestation time. Yes? Right.
Not expecting anything necessarily from the person, but they're giving it to us, that it goes for the life.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, they give it to them, that's for it, come back to them from the universe.
Yep, and if we've been stuck in any roles that have kept us from getting the return on it or flowing out, those roles are getting such a shake-up right now that we're sort of being forced to try something new. So you can imagine the people that have been working on being more authentic, more genuine, more coming from the heart in the past few years. That's great. If you've been resistant to all this stuff for the last 10 years, 20 years, whatever, it would be a lot harder right now. Although I kind of wonder if people even know what's going on, if they've stayed within the system. It might just feel like outside forces, it's just their unlucky period or something like that. We might be more subtle to the different changes, like the taste of food and all of the rest. And I want to get back to that in a little bit, about what we've been going through. But let me do the U.S. And the first thing the reason I brought up Scorpio again is the country was not founded July 4th, 1776. Some of you might know this. That was a celebration created in the mid-1800s. And maybe somebody here with more historical background could fill in all the details. I heard this story a long time ago. But it was created in the mid-1800s as Independence Day, our celebration day. And it wasn't close to Thanksgiving or anything like that, and there's nothing else going on in the middle of the summer, so why not? And, it came from the government. They all got a day off. What the heck? The more accurate day is the day all of the states signed, because it wasn't in effect until all the states signed. So July 4th, 1776, a bunch of states did sign, but not all of them, so it was not in effect. It was not born then. It was sort of given a sonograph, but it wasn't quite born. November 15th, 1777. And I have a 12:46 time on this, and I'm not sure where the time came from. So I won't deal too much with the natal chart, but I'll work with the solar chart. This is a Scorpio chart. And it has the moon in Gemini. And for this time, it has an Aquarius rising. And somebody probably worked with this a long time to get the rising, so I probably shouldn't ignore it completely. But one of the key things in our chart is a lot of luck, a lot of leadership, a lot of disappointment emotionally, and a lot of hidden stuff. Scorpio sun, it's the Scorpio sun. It's very emotional, and I have a Scorpio rising, so I'm not going to get down on Scorpios or anything, but there are a lot of very enlightened, light Scorpios out there. and there are some others that are doing some other stuff. Our country's probably been doing some other stuff. So, going back to the U.S., the Sun will be opposed by the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. So, the Sun in Scorpio is being opposed by that Saturn-Jupiter together in Taurus. Oppositions are not very easy transits. It will probably feel like an unlucky day. Probably an unlucky week, 3 days before, 3 days after. Our Sun will be eclipsed a bit. And this may also have to do with things that are going on internationally. China will be upset for some reason. She will be offended. And I'm not sure what that is. It may have something to do with Russia. But the basic thing with the China chart is they want their ideology obeyed. And any partnerships will be out of balance. And they are probably more technologically advanced than people think. Those are some key things I got from the China chart and the transits going on with China. This may be within their own walls. This might be the Falun Gong. I'm not sure what it is, but they're going to be offended, and we're probably going to know about it. Again, this is not exactly something new, because they've been offended for quite a while. But it's going to be highlighted around this time, around the 27th. And since we're having this hit on the 28th, I would think there might be some connection. Maybe it's going to be more of this spy stuff. I couldn't say. Yes, Stephanie? Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I'm almost done with the 4 places I wanted to do. And then I wanted to do some different stuff in the second half, including talking about personal charts and what we can do, hanging on to chrysocolas and stuff, to work through the month more easily. So, and I've got some handouts for the second half. And if anybody wants to look at Pakistan and the Pope and Bill Clinton and all that, Pope's a Taurus, by the way, double Taurus. Other way, the Pope, he's a double Taurus. Clinton's a Leo with a Libra rising. Yeah. So I think we can take a break now, and we'll take a break for 10.
Where did you get the Earth measurement code?
Oh.
Is that available somewhere?
It's on a website, so I'll write it on the board because it's a long one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to start out with some more business here. This is Mel and Stephanie's magazine, New Earth, and there are some back on the table there. And there's a mailing list for Mel and Stephanie, and there's a mailing list for me. We're going to, pardon me? They're free, yeah. It's free, and Mel and Steph have a website, and it's listed in here, as well as their email address. And if you give me your email address or your regular address, I can let you know when our website's coming out, because it should be up and running in the next week or 2. We have a starter, but I'd be embarrassed to have you go there right now. So, and the last bit of business is, I would love to have this, but this isn't mine. This is from Rainbow's End, and they provided it for the show too. And they've got some really pretty stuff. It's on Main Street. It's right next to Jana's store. They're probably about 105 West Main Street or something like that. And they've got pretty stuff. So now I'm going to sit down for the rest of this. And I wanted to mention a little bit about something Nan mentioned, which is the light and the dark, and the male and the female, and the polarities. Because that's what a lot of this is about. And that's part of the reason there's the possibility of a polar shift. Polarity. We have the opportunity to merge our polarities. I don't know if you've noticed your own opinions and judgments are getting tested, and if you're working with them and you're lucky, you're letting a lot of them go. it's the whole thing of the other, seeing others as the other, as not part of ourselves. And that is a big part of what's going on, is letting that otherness go. This doesn't mean we don't still have responsibility for our own space and our own energy field and our own aura. We do. We're earthbound spirits by choice. But everybody we meet and see is another spark of the same source. You know, we're all from the same source, and we're all sparks of that source. You can say fragment or hand of God or hand of Goddess, however you want to say it. I hope you don't get stuck on any of my terms. I don't mean any of them dogmatically, and I don't know if I'll say any absolute truths here tonight or not. If I do, it'll be totally accidental. But I'm mostly interested in sharing learning tools, ways to perceive ourselves, ways to heal the planet. And if any of this works for you, I'm very pleased with that. And the male-female polarity is really big on the planet. And I guess it's been big with me. Most of the people coming to me for readings, it's been big in their charts. And because of the Taurus alignment, right now it's big for everybody. I'm going to talk about masculine and feminine. And also, this does not mean that I think that women have more feminine and men have more masculine. We might right now. I don't know if that's the way it's always been, and I don't know if that's the way it will always be. I've also heard stuff that we originated sort of as hermaphrodites, you know, both, until the fall or the split or whatever you want to call that occurrence, or the grand experiment. I think that's pretty cool. So we've done this experiment, and there's him and there's her. And the feminine energy has to do with receiving. It has to do, if you can think of the yin and yang, that's pretty useful. The dark, with that spark of light inside. And it's open and receptive. It is what can absorb the light. It can reflect the light. Sort of like the moon. That's why the moon, through almost all of the different customs and ethnicities and countries, the moon has almost, as far as I know, it's always been feminine. A lot of the other planets shift. Oh, there's a moon that's masculine? Is that Native American?
No.
There's a masculine moon?
Babylonian, Hittite, Sumerian, Japanese.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, no absolute truths. But as a learning tool, there's the reflective quality. And I'm going to paraphrase something that was told me a long time ago. But there are some Native American tribes that have moon teepees, where the women will go during their menstrual cycle. And they'll be together. I guess the kids are allowed to come in, because they need to nurse and stuff. But the women go there to dream, and to be in that space of communion with earth and communion with spirit. And they get the dreams, and they come out of the teepee after the week or 5 days or whatever. And the male leaders of the tribe ask them what they've dreamt. And they tell them. And then the men figure out how to manifest those dreams, or what the dreams meant and what action they should take. Action being the key word. So this is sort of the balance I'm talking about with male and female. The feminine side, taking in the information from the cosmic, from our higher selves, from God, from whomever is giving us these clear guidances. And the masculine takes that information and acts upon it. It's pretty basic and simple. And inside each of us, we have both. Little subject, right? So simple, and now, where do we take this? Communication. One of the things you'll see with male-female couples, or even gay couples if they're doing, male-female roles at all, is the man will say, "You're nagging me, you're nagging me, you're nagging me." Well, that's possibly he's cut off his feminine side. He's cut off his intuition. Or he hears it and he won't react on it, but he's hearing it over and over and over and over. And it might be manifesting through his mate. And she's saying, you really need to pay more attention to the kids, or you need to go back to school. So he's getting this intuitive message, and it's coming across, you're nagging me, you're nagging me, you're nagging me. And the woman, on the other hand, will hear her husband, I'm sorry, the other way around. The man will hear his wife say, you never listen to me, you never listen to me, you never listen to me. So the woman is upset because her masculine side isn't acting on what's being said. And she's not relaying the information in a way that can be heard and followed through on. It might be coming through just as frustration without that clear message. So everything's sort of in a topsy-turvy thing, the masculine, the feminine, and both of them together. So this is what, and if what I just said sounds topsy-turvy, that's a good example. So anyway, the Taurus time is a time to balance out the masculine and the feminine energies. And it's an inside job for everybody. We all have the masculine and we all have the feminine. And if we're seeing outside of ourselves a lot of discord, chances are that's inside as well. And we're just seeing it given us, getting this wonderful blessing of an example on the outside. It may not seem like a blessing, but that's what it is. So there's the masculine and the feminine. And now, as far as practical terms, what happens, and this is even more confusing, is a lot of couples are not giving each other all that they need. And often you will see this as the woman not getting the support she needs. Taurus has to do with support, has to do with the physical. When we think of a man supporting a woman, that's sort of an old-fashioned idea. The physical, bringing home a paycheck or, bringing home some goodies, and then the family or the woman gets to work with it and create the home and all that. But there's more to it than that. That's just one kind of support. There's physical support, there's emotional, there's psychic, and there's intellectual. And all women and all men need all four of these things. And that hasn't been happening. We've been shortchanging each other. Women feel lucky if they get supported physically and figure, wow, I've got the best there is. And they can't figure out why there's still a hole inside of them. And this can go back to early childhood training as well, the hole and all that. But as far as completing the, really fusing the masculine and the feminine within ourselves, we're really getting examples again outside. And the men aren't getting clear examples of how to do this. How do I support somebody on all these different levels? And they're getting shortchanged as well, because they're not getting a freedom of expression that women might be getting. Being able to completely share emotionally. So anyway, I don't say I have any answers to all of this, but I say that the planets are giving us opportunities to figure stuff out right now along these lines. And they're pretty complicated. And you don't have to have a mate to be working on these things. They'll be coming to you anyway. Because again, it's the masculine and feminine with each of us. So, if anyone wants to write a book, let me know and I'll push it on my show. There's a lot of information there. So I think most of you have flyers, and if you see at the top, there's a place where you can put your sun sign and your moon sign. I could probably do this fairly quickly. Why don't we start with just somebody telling me their birth date, and I'm going to be able to hopefully figure out your sun and moon.
March 3rd.
March 3rd, what year?
30th.
March 30th?
Yeah. 43.
1943? 1943. And you said March 30th?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything's possible right now. It's the moment of manifestation. You want me to have that as a 63? Is that what you said?
No,
43? Okay. March 30th, right? So you're in Aries. And do you know what time of day?
1:30 a.m.
AM. Looks like a Capricorn moon. So you might want to write that down. on your sheet there. An Aries sun and a Capricorn moon. So an Aries sun, most of your Taurus is in your second house, Jim. So you're dealing with a lot of, on your solar chart, Taurus is mostly in your second house. So a lot of what we're talking about has to do with your finances and your assets. And the underlying thing for Taurus is what's really of value to you. So you're really getting a lot of lessons in figuring out what's really of value for you. That's what's been happening. And like I said, things have been building up. That's because Saturn and Jupiter have already been in Taurus for a long time. Jupiter about 6 months, I think, and Saturn, a while, at least a year. They're both moving pretty quickly, but slower than those other planets. So that's been the build-up, and we've been focusing on these arenas for a while. What's your name?
Angie.
Angie.
My birthday is May
1989. May 16th. Happy birthday. May 16th. A Taurus, though. So your Taurus sun is at 25 degrees, and you have a Libra moon. So you have a lot of Venus energy. Venus rules both Taurus and Libra. And so a lot of this has been happening because you're a late Taurus, because Taurus starts a few weeks before that. You're considered a late Taurus. So a lot of what's been happening has been in your 12th house. So you've been probably having some really good dreams. No? A lot of subconscious work and a lot of stuff having to do with faith and belief. Okay, who's next? Which year? 55. February 20th, you said? 9:40 p.m. Okay, so you just made it into Pisces, and it looks like you have an Aquarius moon. When I say it looks like, for Bill it's pretty sure, but the moon moves so quickly, and this is a book, that sometimes I won't know exactly, but Pisces with an Aquarius moon. So your moon is probably squaring a lot of this stuff in Taurus right now. So you're in an emotional roller coaster, basically. Yep. And before I get to you, Roger, let me just say, let's see. Third house communication is what you're working on right now with the Taurus energy, is communication. So on that flyer it talks about stones and working with opening the throat chakra and speaking your truth. So these are all things for you. Speaking publicly isn't easy, and especially maintaining. Yeah. Well, you're getting an opportunity right now. Maybe you should come right up here and you can look things up for now. Okay. Okay, Roger, what year?
February 1st to 55.
February 1st to 55. Okay. And do you know about what time?
I don't know.
Morning or night?
I think it was at night, but I'm not sure. Well, I should say early morning. Early morning, but I'm not sure. Somehow I know it was just going into February 1st.
Just going into February 1st? Okay, well that tells me. So you're in Aquarius, 11 degrees, and most probably a Taurus moon. And so you're also, and I would say that the Saturn-Jupiter thing is probably going to be a big deal for you on the 28th. But all of this, I mean, Mars just went over your moon, so it might be, and the 7 planets all have specific personalities, and your moon is getting hit by all of them. So you just had Mars go over probably a day or two ago, maybe about 4 days ago. So that may have been flashes of, I've got to be busy. Or if you couldn't get out of the house, it might have been anger, a flash of anger. So your moon's getting hit with all this stuff. So you probably have a lot to talk to Bill about. Okay.
Yeah, right.
1954. You said April 8th, 6:07 a.m. or p.m.? Okay, so you said April 8th, 1954. Looks like probably an 18-degree Aries sun. And this would be a close one. What time did you say again? AM? Where? In Oregon? You're either a very high degree Gemini moon or you skipped into Cancer. You're Gemini moon? Gemini moon? Okay. It's probably a pretty high degree. So the 17 degrees Aries means you've had some stuff dealing. The Taurus overlaps for you. It would be both in the first house and the second house. So you'd also be getting a lot of these things about what's of value to you. That's been happening since the Saturn and Jupiter moved in there, which, if you can think of the Scorpio, the phoenix leaving the ashes, the things that aren't of value for you suddenly aren't even around to worry about anymore. Oh, congratulations. Yeah. Yep. And you're next. 1978, May 7th, you said? Happy birthday to you, too. 1978. 78, May 7th, right? So a Taurus at 16 degrees. And do you know what time of day? And a Taurus moon. So if anyone has any questions about the Taurus energies, go to this woman. And she'll be able to give you a full rundown on caring for the planet, walking lightly upon her. The interesting thing about Taurians, they love luxury. They really get it about Venus, about loving the planet, about really being here and being a friend with her and using her as a glorious playground. They don't like deprivation, but they're the best ones to tell you how to use the resources wisely. It's an interesting combination with Taurus. You will find a decadent Taurus here and there. But in general, Taurians usually have something very major to say about how to work on the earth, and often they have some technology to share too. Maybe you brought it from the last time we went through this on some other planet. As far as I understand, and it resonates with me, this isn't the first time we've been close to this crossroads. Okay. Tell me the year first. Tell me the year first. That's okay. 1930?
1934.
34, okay.
Yeah, one minutes. Yes,
Uh-huh.
in the morning. In the morning.
Okay, and what's the date?
June 13th.
June 13, 1934.
Yes.
Okay, so you are a Gemini with a Cancer moon. So that means, and it's a 21 degree Gemini sun. So most of this stuff has happened in your 11th house. Most of the Taurus energy so far has happened in your 11th house, which is the house of Aquarius. It's the house of networking and friends in the future, and making plans, your hopes and your aspirations. So you've had a lot of energy around all of this. And the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that's going to be happening will be happening in your 12th house, just inside your 12th house, which is, it's asking you for wisdom around what to do with your inspirations. So the inspirations you have, you're probably going to reach some wise use of them. Whether you want to publish them or share them with relatives or any of that will be really key. Hey, Mel.
February 1st,
61.
just right after
Early morning, you said? Okay. 61. February 1st. Oh, yeah, a lot of Februaries. Yep. So, probably a 12 degree Aquarius sun and a Leo moon. So that, you've got the axis there of Aquarius, Leo. Those are in opposition, just like Taurus and Scorpio. So it's interesting because the sun is what we actually do. It's what our soul is sort of compelling us to do in our lives. So yours is to make communion and make friends and community and all of that. And underneath it, you would rather be out on the playground playing around. So let me just say where your stuff is then. So 2, 3, 4. So some of this, it started out probably a month ago in your third house of communication, but now it's in your house, your home, building your home and your nest. So that's a lot of what's happening for you right now. So I wouldn't be, and I already know this, so I'm sort of cheating, but you're probably going to be moving soon. So really pay attention to how comfortable it feels for you. Because Taurus energy wants us to be comfortable. It wants us to be, again, recognizing the playground that is Earth. Yes, Steph? Uh-huh. August 24th? Okay. So you said August 24th? So you just made it into Virgo. And where were you born? Probably a Capricorn moon. So you already have a lot of Earth energy, a lot of focus on how to manifest and manifest while healing the planet. A lot of, and this, well, we could have a whole discussion another time about it, but a lot to do with that, and how to do it wisely and with compassion. Those are all big things. So now we've got Taurus trining all of that. Trine is 120 degree. So I'm just looking here. The 9th house. So almost all of this is in your 9th house right now. And that has to do with your philosophy. This also, philosophy, worldview, it's ruled by Sagittarius, and it can be very expansive, but sometimes when we think we know something, we understand something, it can get a little dogmatic. So if there's been any dogma in your life, that's been challenged and asked to step aside. And so you're making way for a whole new way of understanding the planet and understanding what's possible. So that's a lot of the 9th house. Meeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm sorry. I can talk to you later, David. Okay, you.
October 21st,
1965. And you said October 21st?
6:44
In the AM? So it looks like about a 27 degree Libra sun and a Virgo moon. So most of this has happened in your 7th house, which is your house of relationships and partnerships. And it can be business partnerships as well, but it's has a lot to do, when I was talking about the male-female polarity, this has been a lot of what's been highlighted for you. And I'm using a solar chart. When I'm doing this right now, I'm just doing a solar chart. The reason I'm asking for times is so I can pretty much figure the moon, because some people are right on the edge. I can't tell without a time. But the solar chart is possibly as strong as the natal chart. They're good actually to use together, a solar and a natal. So if you also have all of the, what degree is the Taurus on the 8th house cusp? 19. Okay, well still, even at that, most of the stuff would still be in the 7th house, because it's only once it gets past 19 that it would go into the 8th. But the Jupiter, Saturn coming up on the 28th will be in the 8th house, which has to do with transformation and regeneration and rebuilding whatever it is you've decided to get rid of, rebuilding something new in its place. And then, the partnership. And again, wherever this is hitting you, whatever house it's hitting you in, this is a chance for totally manifesting what it is you've wanted in this arena. So if it's nesting, if it's family life, if it's a home, if it's a relationship, if it's communication skills, this is the time of manifestation. And on August, during the eclipse, I used the seed analogy. Now we are in the blossoming analogy. This is really the blossoming. This is the time when we open ourselves to the light of the sun. And all that glory and shine and color that comes off that flower is what's available to us right now. Okay.
What degree would you say Saturn is in on the 28th?
It's at 22 plus. Yeah. With Jupiter on the 28th. Okay. Sure. Okay. October 26th, 1967. So actually probably 2 degrees Scorpio. And what time were you born?
12:41 a.m.
12:41 a.m. And where? And where?
Bakersfield.
She's right on the edge. Do you know if she has a Cancer moon or a Leo moon?
Leo.
Okay, just into a Leo moon. So the Scorpio, and you're a beginning Scorpio, low degrees, you're 1 degree Scorpio. So almost all of this Taurus energy is in your 7th house, which is similar to what we were just talking about. So it has to do with partnership and manifesting your other half. And there are ways to do this even if the prince isn't riding through the door. You can start planting the seeds for what you want now. And that can be as simple as making a clear list of the qualities you want. There is Scorpio on the flip side of Taurus, so that magic is possible. So you don't want, if you do a list like this, don't put anything negative down. It's a general, again, not necessarily the universal truth, but it's one of the truths of manifestation. You'll attract what you resist. So put down all the glorious things you want on a list. And this helps integrate your inside as well, your masculine and your feminine. So if you say, I want these things from a mate, and the mate's not here yet, it'll also help integrate those parts of yourself.
If somebody is there in that place.
Well, you're probably transitioning your relationship. It's probably a big time of letting any roles go that aren't appropriate anymore. This also means you have Taurus on the 7th house cusp, which means you're used to a pretty solid base in a relationship. That's the way you're the most comfortable. So things might be a little uncomfortable right now, to put it mildly. And I don't want to embarrass you. Scorpios tend not to let people know what's going on inside of them. So this may not seem like earthquakes to people outside, but inside there's a lot of transformation going on. Yeah. Okay.
October 22nd, 1953.
1953. You said October 22nd? 28 degrees Libra. And what time of day?
2:46 p.m.
What do you think you are? Are you an Aries moon or a Taurus moon? An Aries moon?
She's saying Aries.
Do you know what you want and get it? You're an Aries moon. Okay, so Aries, again, more 7th house stuff. More of the 7th house stuff that we were talking about. And that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is going to be in your 7th house as well. So the opportunity is to reach some wonderful point of wisdom by the end of the month on what makes relationships work. And you can write a book too. I'm going to do 2 more, and you raised your hand a couple times, then I'm going to see if there are any questions. 79. Hold on. I can get an overload. Neptune is transiting my 3rd house, so I can get an overload. For those of you who know what that means. What? Okay. January 9th? 70, okay. Okay. You are clearly a Gemini moon. So, and you have an 18-degree Capricorn sun and a Gemini moon. So this means Taurus on the 5th house cusp. Most of this has happened in your 4th house, and it's starting to move into the 5th house. So the 4th house is your home, your nurturing, your ancestors. You've probably been getting a lot of insights. I mean, you're at the age when you sort of examine your home life anyway, but you've been coming up with some really great insights as to who you are and where you came from and, you know, your part in the family or your part out of the family. And there's also a great opportunity here for learning how to nurture yourself. And, you know, eventually most of us have homes or apartments of our own, and this is a great time to listen to all the messages you're getting about what you need in your home that makes you comfortable and makes you feel rooted. Stuff like that. Stuff like that. One more. I'll do you later, Marge. The lady with the brown hair with the glasses.
November 26th,
Oh. Okay, well, I'll do 2 more then, since we got confused there. Did you say 1954? 1954, and you said November 26th? Okay. November 26th, 3 degrees Sagittarius with a Sagittarius moon. That's why you jumped up. Sag sun, Sag moon. Let's do this. 6th house, so health, work, finding the work that is your life work. A lot of us think of work as drudgery. That's not the way it was intended. And Taurian energy is really key on learning how to do work that's really meaningful and fulfilling and really helps that blossom get full light. So you've had a lot of stuff around your life work and around health. So you might be key for some blue stones and stuff around the throat and the thyroid. Taurus also rules the thyroid, which has to do with your metabolism. And Nan is also a key person to talk about all these other, what they used to, all these, I think they used to call them secondary glands, the pituitary, the pineal, all those are all getting activated by right now. There's so much I could talk about or could have talked about because there's so much going on already besides the alignment. The vibration of the earth is rising and our DNA is getting accessed. You know, our brains are becoming more fully functional. We're going beyond the 10%, 12% threshold. We're bringing in more of our brain cycles. The DNA strands that we used to think are 2, that model doesn't seem to be working too well anymore. I've heard there might be 12 strands of DNA. Those are getting accessed, and guess what accesses them? All the feminine, intuitive, creative stuff. And men and women, we've all taken a part in suppressing the feminine energy. And I don't want to affix blame or anything. We're all responsible, and that's a big part of what's going on with Taurus right now is taking responsibility without feeling guilty. Okay? We're at the end of one experiment, and we're starting a new one. And we all took a part in the old experiment. And we're moving into a land, a world of larger possibilities, faster karma, faster cause and effect. If anyone's noticed that, you think something and tomorrow it's there. That's been a real scary one. It's all getting accelerated. So again, if any of those health issues have been accented for you, you might want to take care of those and look at the Taurus stuff. Read that stuff about enjoyment on that sheet. That would be key for what we're talking about. And you're the last one right behind you.
November 26th, 1953.
1953.
At 9:50,
Okay. November 25th, 1953. Okay, you're a Sag with a Leo moon. So neither of you are going to get overlooked. And actually, you know, you two were born like a day apart or something like that, different years. So you're about a 2-degree, probably 3-degree Sag with the Leo moon. More of the same. Health, speaking your truth. If you haven't been able to, and I'm not sure if anyone's totally integrated it, but really follow what you feel is your life path. Even if it makes no sense, there's no possible money in it, there's no possible way your family or your friends are going to understand it, go for it. You know, there may be many lives, but this is the only one we're focused in right now, so, you know, do it. And we're provided for, you know. I struggle to say. We are provided for. Not always when we ask for it, but it happens. And this is a good nurturing, nesting community to let yourself do it, let yourself flow into it. And are there any other questions that you don't want me to look this up? Any other questions about Taurus? Stephanie?
Well, mine wasn't about Taurus, but I was just curious when you said that I just made it into Virgo.
Yeah.
And I have a Leo ascendant too, so I'm wondering,
Oh.
does that mean that I'm just into Virgo? Does the Leo influence?
Well, a lot of people, and it's funny because I just thought about this yesterday. A lot of people say, well, I'm a Gemini, but I'm almost a Cancer, and the Cancer influence is really strong. But I rarely get people who say, I'm just in, you know, rarely do I get people going backwards. This is the first time I think I've ever heard anyone ask about going backwards. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it means you probably have a lot of excitement about the whole healing possibility of Virgo. And, you know, there's the perfectionist thing. But just as a rule, if you're in a sign, you're in a sign. And you already have a Leo ascendant, so you'll have a big bunch of Leo energy anyway. But it doesn't mean it's because the sun is at 0. You have a full Virgo sun, plus you have your Leo ascendant. So you do have both of these worlds going on. What happens is Mercury and Venus run with the sun. You know, Venus can be 45 degrees away from the sun, and Mercury can be only 28 degrees away from the sun. So what often happens is if somebody's at the end of Gemini, the Mercury or Venus will already be in Cancer. So they'll get all these Cancerian influences from those two planets, but the sun is a full Gemini sun. So a lot of people ask about the cusp stuff, and well, I'm a Leo, but I'm almost a Virgo, and Leo doesn't really fit me. Well, there's, you know, the thinking and the love and the appreciation might all be in Virgo, and also, you know, you may have a sun in Virgo. See, the Virgo tends to be more modest, and the Leo wants to be more on the stage of life. And so somebody who's a Leo, but they feel they're a Virgo, it might be because they would be embarrassed to do what they think Leos are capable of. Okay.
I'm wondering, does it affect us where the Venus is sitting here with Venus?
Oh, it all affects you, yeah.
Well, I don't really know anything about it, but my friend said that it depends on where is it because Venus rules Taurus, and depending on where that is in your chart? Like I have it in the 2nd house.
Okay, and that's Taurus's house.
So what does that say?
In general, away from what's happening right now, that would mean, do you know what sign it's in?
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. Well, Venus alone in the 2nd house will mean that there's a love of comfort and fine things, and it probably means you have pretty good taste. If you go into a store and you don't see the price tags, you'll go right to the most expensive one.
But right now, what is it?
Right now, well, for instance, the Venus in Sagittarius also loves to travel. And since it's in the house of things, it might mean that you like to have things that remind you of travel, like globes and maps and stories of faraway places and things like that, books. But, so that might be transforming. So instead of doing this traveling, like let's say you've yearned all this time, I want to travel, I never have the money or whatever, I really want to travel, that's getting transformed with all the Taurus energy. You're probably doing more astral traveling. You're figuring out other ways to do it. Something is shifting around it. Or you're just more comfortable being within, because that's a big trip too. So those things would all be highlighted. Yes.
Can you talk about all the energy that's coming out of the sun right now?
The sun. And it's in Taurus. And I'll add one more little gloom and doom tidbit. I know. May 5th, there is a group of scientists, but renegade scientists, who are tracking a comet that seems like is going to go very close into the atmosphere of Mars and could possibly make a chip in Mars or something, with the off possible chance that one of those little chips might come to Earth. But that's one of the gloom and doom things. And that's supposed to happen around May 5th. And the other thing I want to say about May 5th, I'm sort of avoiding the solar question. Let's see. Solar question. I'm going to paraphrase Dr. Kennedy, who Mel and Steph have had here, about the sun. He's a sun expert. And it's really interesting. The plates of the Earth match the plates of our skull. And the plates of the Earth match the plates on the sun. They actually look continents. The continents on the Earth are matched by these, what would seem like land masses on the sun. It's almost like a map of what happens here. And he's tracked this for decades. And what he's seen is whenever there's a nuclear bomb blowing off or a big battle going on, there's a sunspot on the sun in the same place on the sun. So this has a lot to do with consciousness, intent, and action with what we're doing here. My personal belief is that the sun is not making us set off a nuclear bomb, but that it is mirroring what we're doing. So we have a lot to say about what happens with the sun and whether it fries our skin off or burns up plants or whatever. And, we've been pretty naughty down here. We've been given a lot of leeway, and it's been an up and down trend, and we're shown examples of how to live, and then we take a little bit of advantage of that, and then we're get ourselves in sort of a rut, and we're given another chance. And, it's time to get the message. It's definitely time to get the message. And what was the other question? Oh. May 5th. May 5th. There's going to be a meteor shower in Aquarius May 5th, which will put even more emphasis on the Aquarius two planets, which are Uranus and Neptune. And I wanted to mention Neptune. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but a lot of dreams these days seem more and more like probable futures. And they still might be encoded in some symbolism, but sometimes it's not all that symbolic. Sometimes it's very similar to a real possibility, a real probability. Close friends, meditation circles. There might be some stuff going on in the earth, and there's a safe place to be. So that's been interesting. Neptune in the future, Neptune in Aquarius. Now we have Uranus in Aquarius, which again is the future, and there's no real turning back. Taurus has a lot of traditional energy, and Uranus doesn't. Aquarius doesn't. And having all those meteors up in the sky in Aquarius is really going to focus our attention on what's available in the future, which is a good thing. It's not a falling off the cliff time. There's a future. There's a time that we're supposed to be working towards and making happen and making healthy and clear, and really coming together. It's been a lot of mindlessness that's caused most of this. We can name some bad guys, but we all had a part in it. And nobody would pollute a river thinking that their grandkids were going to drink out of it. We've been doing the immediate bottom line thing for a long time. And so having all that stuff in the future reminds us that there's a future. There are kids here, there are kids to come, and we want it to be at least as good as it was for us. So, any other questions? Otherwise, mailing lists are in the back. That's a website that I got, that Earth Mission Codes, which is pretty interesting. And she has a lot of interesting stuff on her site about balancing out the light and the dark and incorporating the sides of ourselves we don't want to look at. And we've got a woman here who would love to have a class down in the Bitterroot. So if anybody is from down there or knows anybody, I would need about 4 or 5 people to have a class down there. And if anyone wants a class up here, let me know too. Thank you very much for showing up. Pardon me? It's interesting you should say that, because Nancy, who's been sitting over there, has 2 kids that are interested in starting. Really? Yeah, that'd be fun. Yes. I've known a lot of wonderful Taurus belly dancers. Oh, yeah.
Since you didn't want to keep doing that, would you mind taking a look at mine?
Oh, sure.
Do I want the actual date or is that going to work?
You do? And she's going to start taking some kids maybe. What's going on?
What's the
Really?
day? What's the day of the month you're born?
Oh, the 13th of June. She is the same as her.
So you're about 22 degrees.
Yeah, 22.
So most of this is mainly in the 11th house. And that Saturn, Jupiter conjunction is right on the cusp of your 12th house.
Better would.
And my moon is in my 12th house, which really sucks. Really sucks.
It used to be a real thing. Right here we go. The algae grows by the sun.
My term for it is a psychic sponge.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Until I was about 30,
The
I
bug
was just
feeds
like
off
a
the
total
algae.
airhead. And then that's when my moon progressed into
And
Capricorn.
the bug feeds off the algae.
And, or thereabouts, I think. Anyway, about 30, I just started steadying down.
The
I
crop
was actually able to take all my knowledge and start teaching other people in a better way. I've been doing it for about 5 years, but
the hunter kills the crop for food.
it's got better.